Hello everyone, very good noon to all. Today on the last day, fifth day of the presentation of semester 2, I am going to explore my presentation on the topic fantasy and religious vision in 20th century literature. These are the points which I am going to discuss in the presentation. So, let us first begin with what is fantasy literature. So, as M.H. Abraham notes in a glossary of literary criticism, this term encompasses novel and short stories that represent an imagined reality that is radically different in its nature and functioning from the world of our ordinary experience. It projects future utopia or else take an aspect of current society by imagining their dystopian conclusions. So fantasy literature provides social issues through various use of various religious and other fantastic stories. What is religious? The belief in and worship of a superhuman power or powers, especially a god or gods. A god means in Christianity, Christian people believe in one god, whereas in Hindu we have so many gods to worship. What is the relation between fantasy and religion? So fantasy and religion both are very much intertwined with each other, and the relation between both this is quite complex also to notice. Fantasy and religion incorporates with each other. Both are based on same kinds of belief, means imaginary worlds, but the way of exploration of ideas and meanings and messages are somewhat different. In religion, god is always at the center, but if we will look at fantasy literature, there we cannot find that who is always center. Sometimes man is at the center, and sometimes supernatural being is also at the center. So there is unpredictability about the central character, or who is at the center. Religious stories are also based on fantasy, as in all the all the religion of the world. There is always kind of stories woven around god and gods. Many a time, religious plays a vital role to frame fantasy stories. Fantasy stories are very much connected to what is conveyed by religious, not the ideas of religion, but the way of spreading morals. Sorry, not morals, but ideas which are useful for the welfare of human being and the society, which are leading towards dystopian society. Incorporating fantasy and religious vision in 20th century literature. Filmer notes in one of his articles, fantasy literature does two things. It comes to the term with the existential angst of the 20th century and accepts the reality of skepticism that pervades the external world. In religion, we can't see, there is no scope of skepticism, which is always elaborated by religion, that our religion are more scientific, but in fantasy stories there are more scope of being skeptical, and they accept that, whereas religious hardly accepts all these things. Fantasy literature fulfills major purpose of religious discourse. It articulates hope in postmodern world, which has learned to deeply distrust the leaders of organized religions. I have forgot to mention here S.C. Ward's reference of skepticism and questioning and examining, what which he described in his work 20th century, and notes about H.G. Well. He says that 20th century is much different from the previous centuries. It and not only believing in what has been said, but rather in 20th century, skepticism and being always skeptical and raise questions are essential in 20th century. The fantasy can be considered as part of religious tradition as well. There are various examples of fantasy stories which are having religious vision in it, like The Lord of the Rings by J.R.R. Tolkien, The Chronicles of Narnia by C.S. Lewis, His Dark Materials by Philip Pullman. I will be dealing with The Lord of the Rings and The Chronicles of Narnia. Let us first look at The Lord of the Rings by J.R.R. Tolkien. It is written in 3 volumes set in Middle Earth. This work is considered as being initiative to fantasy story incorporating religion in it. Here one point should be noted that Tolkien was a Catholic, though he has many a time refused that his works are not of allegory of religion, but we can find Christian intellectual tradition as well as Christian interpretation and exemplification of Christian beliefs in the Lord of the Rings. There are 3 parts, 3 volumes of the novel, The Fellowship of the Ring, The Two Towers, The Return of the King. So what is there in the Lord of the Rings, and which is common, which contains religious views also, good versus evil. So the whole series of the novel is about triumph of good over evil, where Frodo and other triumph over Sauron's power, who is supposed to destroy the world. In the Lord of the Ring, Gandalf is presented or depicted like Christ-like figure, and his qualities such as wisdom, compassion, and self-sacrifice are being can be compared to Christ also. Here I have put the photo from the movie series where when Gandalf come back after he sacrificed his life and come again, there is a kind of a light. So this image of the novel, this frame of the movie shows us that Gandalf is somewhat being compared to Christ-like figure. Antagonist is Sauron, and Ring is a kind of temptation for all of them, and which is in it evil power. Frodo is a hero. Magic is in its base. Everything is being controlled by magic. There are prophecies also, providence is also. There are film series. Lord of the Rings was released between in 2001 to 2003. So in a way, the series of the novel The Lord of the Rings contains the religious essence of that, and through which, though in 20th century religious beliefs were not being accepted at all, this but through this kind of works, those ideas of compassion and creating a better world is being conveyed. Now, the Chronicles of Narnia by C.S. Lewis. It is series of 7 books set in Narnia, a fictional realm, fantasy world of magic, where there is mythical beings with who are talking, which are talking about animals. This contains adventures of children who unfold the history of the Narnia world. It is, as I mentioned, it is a series of 7 books. It was The Magician's Nephew, The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, The Horse and His Boy, Prince Caspian, The Voyage of the Dawn Trader, The Silver Chair, The Last Battle. In this picture of the Chronicles of Narnia, above you can see that the horse is having wings. Uh, this series of works have Christian faith in it, as in Lion and the Witch and the Wardrobe. There is a conversation, there is a dialogue. Here is always winter, never Christmas. So really, Christian ideologies came here, reference of Christianity came here. Many a place the reference of Christianity came. This is about a witch who is living in the province of Narnia. Aslan dies to save Edmund's life, and this sacrifice can be compared to the sacrifice of Christ. In Chronicle of Narnia, a miniature Bible, D.T. Mears compares this series of novel with Bible. There is linear concept in this series. There is linear concept like Bible. Uttards call it a soul of Bible for Bible-less age. So, what is the comparison? Death of Christ, which is compared to lion, the witch, and the wardrobe. The personal choice to trust and follow Christ in Prince Caspian, the spiritual life as a journey towards God in the voyage of the dawn trader, the importance of perseverance in the face of modern world in the silver chair, God's constant providence in the in the horse and his boy, the manifestation of providence in the creation in the magician's nephew, and for last night in the last battle. The last battle ends with the triumph of good over evil, and all the children's are being triumph over the place of province of Narnia. D.T. Mears also says that there in this novel there is a kind of a linear concept from Genesis to Revelation, which is described in the Bible. Now, sorry, I think it is been not erased. The recent movie 2022 Brahmastra can be compared to what has been in the Lord of the Rings, not in that proper way, but can be categorized in this category. This is Bollywood Hindi fantasy film directed by Yan Mukherjee. uh, there is a Brahma Shakti which produces various astras. There is battle and fight between Shiva and Junun and Zor. Shiva is protecting the astras, whereas Junun and Zor wants to get Brahmastra to overpower the human race. Shiva is in himself Agnyastra, and there is a concept of Brahmansh, a secret society to protect the world from the power of Astras. So, there is always a kind of a fear of the activation of this Brahmastra. So, member of Brahmansh are protecting those evil, those this Brahmastra from evil powers like Junun and Jor, who are having a bad or evil kind of mindsets to overpower the whole human race by using Brahmastra. And at the end, our protagonist Shiva gets success over the Shiva gets powers. Can get from me. At the end, Shiva is able to re uh, to stop reactivated Brahmastra, who was been activated by the death of Junun, who is sacrificed to this Brahmastra to get the power of Brahmastra. In Hindu myth, this concept can be compared to Hindu mythology, where there is Brahmastra in Ramayana and Mahabharata. Also, we have seen that Brahmastra, when it is being activated, it has a strength to destroy many things at one time. So this film can be in not in that sense, but in a broader way to this category of fantasy and religious views. Now, what is the role of fantasy and religion in addressing social issues? So, all these fantasy stories incorporating religious beliefs are tend to explore the ideas of how explore the idea of real world and societal issues. there is always a kind of dystopian prediction of a dystopian society, and the hero or the protagonist of each fantasy stories are preventing those who are those who want to make society dystopian by ruling over the whole human race. There is always danger of power, but at the end of most of the fantasy stories, or I may say the all the fantasy stories, there is a kind of hope which gives us consolation that there will be good, there will be triumph over good, over there will be triumph of good over evil, and the world will be better, of what better for living for human beings. So I would like to conclude by representing an imagined reality. Reality fantasy literature addresses the societal issues and provides insights into the human condition, and it also gives us a way how to solve this question, but not in that broader way, but it lets us to think that what should be done if such conditions will happen. So these are the works which I have cited. Thank you. Now I'm open for questions.
Shali, how does the interaction between literature and religion influence the development of fantasy? And to what extent do they mutually shape each other also?
Okay. Between literature and religion. So, how does the interaction between literature and religion influence the development of fantasy? Literature is many a times literature and religion are incorporated with each other, and this gives rise to fantasy stories. Though in literature it is difficult to say that every each and every time religious is being incorporated, but though many time it is incorporated, and this the combination of both religion and literature shapes the fantasy story. If both the elements, both type of genres will not be connected, then the exploration of fantasy story would not be possible.
Usually, how do authors use elements of fantasy in their representation of religion in 20th century literature?
Yeah. In 20th century literature, we want to find direct reference to them. Many a times, it is possible that they are using direct reference, but as 20th century is having a characters of being skeptical in literature and any work of art, and also in livings, which differs from the Victorian era. It represents another kind of, sorry. It represents religion not directly, but by giving various archetypes of the characters which are similar to god, or the characters which are in religion, which are supernatural. So this is how fantasy represents, there is a representation of religion in 20th century, not direct, but many a times direct, but no, mostly not directly, but in a way of archetypes. Thank you.